Okay, so I'm an environmental scientist, but I'm interested in human behavior, and I'm especially interested in cooperation. And the tragedy of the commons is a really useful metaphor still after all these years for understanding cooperation and looking at it, especially in terms of the individual versus the group. And it's a tragedy and not a comedy because there's a tendency toward overexploitation. And that's because, let me get my slides up. So that's because the costs of, or the benefits rather, of adding additional cow to the pasture are individualized, but the costs of doing that are shared. And so this results in a tension that we talk about a lot between the individual and the group. And I'm most interested in large-scale cooperation dilemmas like Lucas mentioned, climate change, overfishing, but the same model of the commons applies to the digital structures that you all are more interested in. And so we talk about this problem and we keep looking at it in terms of this tension. But there's another tension that I find really interesting and it's less discussed, and that's the role of time in the tragedy of the commons. The tension between your current self and your future self, or the current group and the future group. And the way this plays out a lot in terms of the tragedy of the commons is that the benefits of defection are immediate, but the benefits of cooperation in so many instances are delayed. And in the case of climate change, where we know that to avert dangerous climate change, we're going to have to reduce greenhouse gases by 50% by 2050, the costs are very immediate, but the benefits are delayed much into the future. And so this results in this issue of discounting the future, that something today is more valuable than that same something tomorrow. So my colleagues here in Germany and I actually designed an experiment to look at the role of discounting in a group setting. And because I'm here in Germany, and because this is a design conference, I thought I would share the design of the experiment. And I got to work with Germany's own king of experiments, Manfred Milinski, at the Max Planck Institute to do this. So what we do is we put 6 students, in this case from the University of Hamburg, in a room together, and we divide them off so that they can't see one another. We give them computers so that they can see their own decisions along with the decisions of the people in their group, all under an anonymous pseudonym. And we also give them 40 euros, and we give them the option of donating 0, 2, or 4 euros to a collective pool. And this experiment that we designed, this paradigm is very common in economic psychology, but this one in particular we designed around climate change to understand, again, cooperative behavior, the role of time, which I'll add in a minute, to making collective decisions. And so over the course of 10 rounds, they can give 0, 2, or 4 euro to this collective climate account. Sorry. Why is it not advancing? Is it? Okay. And if they, whatever money that they donated to the climate account, they would use then we paid for advertising for a climate protection ad in the local newspaper. So the money actually went, as you'll see here, to this German advertising to hopefully mitigate climate. And then there was the additional component of cooperation, what we're most interested in, right? If they reached 120 euros, then they received, each individual in the game received an additional 45 euro endowment. This is money they actually walk away with, so they're very happy to play these games. If they didn't reach the 120 euros, they leave with the capital that they began with, whatever the 40 euros minus whatever little money they might have invested into the climate fund. So this, again, sort of demonstrates the cooperation that we need for climate change. We all have to make sacrifices, and then we all will benefit, that's the definition of cooperation, sort of, from those sacrifices, and this has a particular threshold of 120 euros. Now, in the egalitarian option, what happens? Everybody gives 20 euros. All 6 players, they reach the 120 euros. And then all players receive an additional 45 euro endowment. So everyone walks away with 65 euros, everyone's happy, right? Here's data from a real game in which they almost exactly achieved the socially optimal outcome. and players walked away with more or less those 65 euro. Here's a game in which one player, though, had to give sort of significantly more than other players. And this, again, we see this tension emerge between the individual and the group. So this individual gave 30 euros of their capital so that the group could achieve the 128 euros, and other players gave less than that. And this player probably walked away a bit unhappy compared to the rest of the group. Yet everyone benefited from cooperation. Here's a game in which, again, real data, players gave very little to the climate fund and did not achieve the 120 euros, and therefore did not achieve the benefits of cooperation, that additional endowment. Now, how did we add time into this? So this is the real design advance in terms of the experiment. We, in these natural cooperation dilemmas, you receive the benefits of defection immediately. That we know. But in this case, we had one treatment where we delayed the benefits of cooperation by 1 day. So they had to return the next day to receive that additional $45 endowment. We had a treatment in which they had to return 7 weeks later to receive the endowment. And then we had a third treatment that represented sort of an intergenerational benefit of cooperation, where we would invest the money that they gave to the climate fund into planting trees. And that these trees, we framed again the problem around climate change. They would sequester carbon dioxide for at least 80 years. They wouldn't be used for commercial purposes. And of course, future generations would benefit from that climate mitigation strategy. So here are the dismal results of our study, which was published in Nature Climate Change in December of last year. In the case of rewards of cooperation occurring 1 day later, 7 of the 10 groups managed to achieve the threshold. In the case of having to return 7 weeks later, which again is nothing compared to the timescales we're facing with regards to climate change, we see a significant decline in cooperation, so that only 4 of the 11 groups achieved the threshold. And then in the case of the planting trees, all 11 groups failed to reach this 120 euro threshold. Now, what's interesting is that all 3 treatments start out with about the same level of cooperation in the first round. And what really changes things is this group computing. What they're doing is they're looking at how others are making the decisions, they're looking at how others are discounting this collective climate account, and they're reacting. And so this is where our experiment made an advance in terms of design, is in this element of group discounting, or group calculation of individual discount rates. This also just shows in each of the 3 treatments the level of 0, 2, and 4 euro contributions. So you can see that the number of selfish acts, i.e. 0 euro contributions, is highest in the tree planting treatment. Now, the media rightfully probably framed our experiments as being pessimistic. On the other hand, what surprises me at all is that there is any investment in the third treatment, in the tree planting treatment. The idea that even one group almost achieved 120 euros, when in fact, again, they will not experience the benefits of cooperation at all. This is really interesting to me. So one thing that I also had to discuss quite a bit afterward was that, yes, there's a temporal issue that makes cooperation difficult, and this confounds cooperation. But on the other hand, in our experimental setup, the players could not see one another. So should we have allowed them to even just look at one another, things might have changed. And definitely, if we had allowed them to talk, if we had allowed them to communicate, build reputation, be threatened with the prospect of shame or honor, things might have also changed. And so what we're using these experimental domain, this design for, is just to advance our understanding of human behavior, try to make incremental steps toward understanding what might help change our behavior, help us make the sacrifices that are required to combat things like climate change and overfishing and other large-scale cooperation dilemmas. Thank you.